gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you an extraordinary individual, someone whose story of resilience, transformation, and the power of human spirit will leave you deeply inspired. Susie Pearl is not only a celebrated author, creativity coach, and TEDx speaker, but also a true embodiment of hope and healing. After being diagnosed with a brain tumour and given just weeks to live, Susie experienced a profound near-death experience that completely transformed her life. Throughout this journey, she's defied all odds, embraced the power of love, forgiveness, and creativity, and emerged stronger than ever. So today, Susie dedicates her life to helping others unlock their potential and live fully in the present moment. Please join me in extending a heartfelt thank you to Susie Pearl for being part of this incredible event and for sharing her remarkable story with us. Susie, we are deeply grateful for your presence and invaluable insights that you bring to this life-changing experience. Thank you so much. Could we talk a little bit about what it was that happened to you, and when you realized that you were having your near-death experience, what were your initial thoughts or emotions?
Well, I began to lose my memory and couldn't remember where I'd parked my car and things like this. And friends and neighbors were getting worried about me. And then one day I was late for a meeting with my neighbor in a place we always went to. And I said, I couldn't remember the way. And she said, you are acting very strange. We need to get you checked out. And I don't like doctors and I don't like hospitals. So I said, no, I'm not coming. She bundled me into her car and took me off to the hospital. I got tested and they diagnosed a huge tumor in my brain, right in the middle of my brain, inoperable. And they gave me very short time to live. So get your family here, get your affairs in order, sort of like write the last letter to your son. And deep inside, I knew that I wasn't going anywhere. Little did I know I was going to a fantastic place very shortly, but I would come back. So with this diagnosis, I was meditating anyway. I've been meditating for over a decade, quite regularly and part of my life. I sat on my bed in the hospital and started to meditate. And I got this feeling really strong. I knew that I was going to die. And I thought, I better tell someone. So I went off to the nurses' station. I was in a hospital in Ibiza, near to my home. And I went and saw my favorite nurse and I said, hey, I'm going to die today. I've just got that feeling. She said, no, you're fine. We've got you covered. And I said, well, keep an eye on me, please. So the nurses sort of were in and out, as they always are, doing tests and things. And I went back to the room and I sat on my bed and then I felt this feeling. And I'll tell you what the feeling was like. It was, as I was meditating, I felt my spirit being brought up. And it was like I had a hoover on top of my head to really bring my spirit up through my crown. And I felt like my spirit was leaving my body. And it was a strange experience, but I wasn't frightened. I just thought, oh, okay, I'm noticing this. And there was a tug, and then my spirit left my body. And I remember looking down on my body, and I saw this body in this hospital bed and nurses around and things. And I went on a journey. I went to the other side of life, and I took a trip, which was a trip around the cosmos, really. It's hard to put into words because there aren't really words that explain what the feeling was like. But I knew that I was in this expansive space. I knew that I was loved. I knew that I'd always been loved, and that I was currently in heaven. And it felt wonderful, felt really beautiful, blissful, gorgeous, calm, harmonized. It was absolutely fantastic. And I had this question posed to me while I was out there. And it was a question of, do you have a one-time choice? Do you want to come back into your life, or do you want to stay here? And I remember at the time feeling, it's so beautiful here, but it's a no-brainer for me. I'm a mom, and I have a son to still look after, and I want to come back. I have to come back. He really needs me, and I want to be with him. So at the moment I decided that, there was a white flash, and I was back in my body. The extraordinary part, if that wasn't extraordinary enough, was that I then had an MRI scan. And when the doctor came in to give me my results of this MRI brain scan, he was shaking his head and he said, I've never seen this in all my years of oncology. He's a very senior cancer specialist. And he said, the tumor has gone and there is no scarring, which is surprising. Both of these things are surprising. You're fully healed. And he shook his head and said, I have no words, I have no explanation. It looks like a miracle. Although in the medical profession, we're not in the business of miracles. And I said, well, I am. That is my business. I am in the business of miracles. So there I was, suddenly fully healed in my body. And I came back with many downloads and inspirations around this experience. And when I was going into the scanner, I asked, why am I going through this? And I got a very clear answer. And that was, you're an author, a communicator with a platform to speak to many, many people. And you will be describing these events and inspiring millions of people about healing and about what life is truly about. So now I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to share what I learned when I was on the other side. And it's wonderful lessons that we can all use. They're universal lessons. They're not for me, they're for all of us. So that was the kind of run-up backstory to what happened to me.
Wow, that is incredible. And to come back and have the scan be completely clear, that must have just felt so unbelievable.
Well, it felt very believable because I knew that I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I wasn't even surprised to hear this. It was kind of a knowing. I knew that this was my journey and I knew this was my story. And I was telling many people, I'm going to get through this. And they were thinking, oh, bless her. She doesn't understand how bad it is. Yeah, I did understand. It's just I was in a different realm of understanding about what was happening. And I knew that I was going to be okay. And I sure was. And here I am. This is years later. 5 years later, and here I am writing books and talking, doing talks and things. So it's a pretty wonderful story. And my job now is to share some of the beautiful things that I learned about dying and applying those to how to live, knowing what I know about dying. And we're here for a very short time, and I was looking down the barrel of 3 weeks to live. And so suddenly different choices come up. Do I want to be looking at this? Do I want to be working on this thing if I only have 3 weeks to live? The thing is, I didn't believe that I only had 3 weeks to live, but at some level I had been told that. So my brain began to consider, what would I be doing if I only had 3 weeks to live? So suddenly everything changes focus. Suddenly the things that you feel are important are no longer important. I had some intense feelings about my ex-partner, for example, the father of my son. For most of my son's life, it had been very difficult with him. And then suddenly with 3 weeks to live, he was at my bedside in the hospital. He cried. He's a big alpha male, and he cried. The first time I've seen him cry. And I melted, and forgiveness came in. There is nothing to hold against someone if you think you're about to die, or if you think you have a very finite time left. You forgive, you move on, you heal, you all of these things You don't want to go to your deathbed and pass over with unsettled business. No, you can't. So I never thought this would be healed, this rift between us. It was healed instantly, because we both believed or thought that my days were numbered. So if we're living life like we have only a short time left, we make different kind of decisions. And I have an announcement to make about this. We all have only a finite time left to live. It's true for all of us. So let's make good decisions. Let's make better decisions. Let's be kinder, more compassionate, more loving to each other. No wars. Let's forget this wars thing, because it is ludicrous. And we know it's all decisions made by people with perhaps different agendas and lenses. We don't need to fight. We don't need to blow each other up. We don't need to bomb anything. We're meant as human beings, I do believe, to be harmonious, loving, kind. We're meant to really enjoy this life. This life is for us to offer bliss and joy and contentment. And we forget, because life is very challenging and very busy, and very often we have not connected so well to our hearts and our inner understandings about being a human being on this planet. If we care to live an extraordinary life, then we will need to make appropriate decisions, and decisions that are perhaps very different than the ones we're currently making. And this involves showing up with unconditional love in the world. This involves understanding that what we think about, what we speak about, and what we feel has huge impacts on the kind of experiences that we create. It's very important, therefore, that we are mindful and pay attention to our deeds, our words, and our thoughts and our feelings. And when we do this, life changes. And I've seen this in action. I decided when I was on the other side, I wanted to come back, and I set that intention in my mind. I want to come back into my body, and immediately, bam, there was a white flash. I was back in. Now, that is an example of how powerful intention setting is. When we set an intention, our consciousness, our awareness, everything about us, the energy field, conspires to bring this into, let's call it, reality.
Yeah.
So we have to be more careful about the decisions and the choices we make, and be aware that in here, our consciousness that we have, that we all hold as humans, is incredibly powerful and must be handled very carefully, with care about what we're intending and what we want to do and what we want to put out there in the world. So I've become even more aware of my words. I mean, I'm a writer, so I've always worked with words, and I've always been very positive in the way I speak and the things I talk about. I worked with Paul McKenna, the hypnotist, for many years, and as his managing director, and he said to me one day, "I want you to work with me. You're the most positive person I've ever met." And
Wow.
yeah, I've learned the importance of being positive. But since this experience, this near-death experience, I understand the physics of it. I understand this isn't just, oh, it's nice to be positive. It's absolutely essential knowing that what we think about and what we talk about will convert into bringing that and more of that energy to us. It was a theory before, and now I've seen it in action. So if I was to say, what is my legacy to leave behind, to share with people, it's your thoughts and your words are powerful. Use them well. If only we knew that more. If only we were taught that in schools, our kids were taught that, our lives would be very different. And politicians and the way they run the world would be very different. You know, it wouldn't be about battling and causing trouble and all of these things. It would be much more pleasant and calm and loving. And as human beings, we're meant to be loving. We're meant to give love and to receive it and keep that in balance. That's what we're meant to be doing. And it's really, really important. More important now, more than ever. Although when you track it all through history, there's always been examples of communities battle with each other. And from what I've seen in my travels in the cosmos, we shouldn't be doing that. I will point to nature as an example. You do not see the trees fighting with the flowers, fighting with the insects. It's a harmonious ecosystem. Nature is harmonious. It's got rhythm. It works through the seasons. The trees grow. The plants have their soil. Everything works together in a network. The trees talk to each other through their roots. If one tree is starved of water, that the information will go out to the trees nearby, and all sorts of brilliant things will happen. Let's be more like, we are part of nature, and we should really act like we're part of nature. We have this extraordinary tool, which is cognitive abilities and intelligence that human beings have. We've got to make a better job of it.
Absolutely, very well said, and I couldn't agree more. I think that if everybody thought like you did, Susie, I'm sure it would be a much happier world. I think that unfortunately a lot of people are driven by the wrong things, and it's kind of created this messy situation that we're in, which is why I believe that right now is a great time to be talking about all of this, because like you say, right now more than ever, we need that feeling of love. We need to be more compassionate to one another and to ourselves. And I think the world does feel as though it's kind of awakening now. That.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? We are waking up at some level. These kind of conversations, I'm not sure that my parents would have been having these kind of conversations with one another about consciousness and unconditional love and so on. Although unconditional love has had its part to play in a lot of the theology and the scriptures through the ages and so on, about talking about unconditional love, loving your brothers and your family and all the rest of it. But I think now we have to, it's almost like we've been coerced into this really toxic situation in world terms, and now we have to find some antidotes to this to bring us back into the rhythm and back into equilibrium. And what I saw when I was on the other side was that love holds everything together. It's the glue that we see in the universe. It's love. And when we come at life in a loving way, everything begins strangely to work better. Our relationships are better. Our fortune is better. Good things happen to us when we are kind and when we apply love to a situation. I can no longer say bad things about other people and feel good about that. My son is a ninja at this. He will not allow anyone to badmouth others. He won't tolerate it. He's in his 20s and he's just got this young person's awareness that we have to keep things kind and we have to keep things on the right track and not dip into gossiping, bad mouthing, getting angry, getting cross with people. And I get it. People say, but we're short of money. It's very stressful. I've got a stressful job. My kids are stressful. My situation is stressful. I get it. But the way out is not shaking fists, making demands. It's going into calm, connecting with yourself through meditation, through walking in nature, whatever is your thing. Petting your pets, really just getting into this more bliss state and being able to relax more. And the harder life is, the more we need to relax. I've had a hard life. People look at me and go, oh, it's okay for you. You haven't got all the problems we have. Yeah, I have had plenty. I've run businesses. I've had difficulties with family. I've had, there's been mental health issues floating around. I've had my fair share. I've lost people very dear to me in tragic situations. I've had to face a lot. So I do not accept this thing of, oh, it's okay for you. No, we've all got big storylines in life. That's part of being a human being. We all have these really, really challenging times. And people may ask, well, why? Why have we got to have these challenging times? And my answer to that would be because we are here to learn lessons, to grow and to transform, and to be better people on our way out than we were when we arrived.
Absolutely, that's the goal, isn't it? You must be so proud of your son, Susie.
I really am. Yeah, I really am. And the thing is, I brought him up, and he was around this idea of be careful what you talk, be mindful about what you talk about. So he's just taken it on unbelievably, and he's just a naturally really nice guy with kind of a different level of consciousness, where he realizes you can't go around being mean or unpleasant to people. Way better strategy and tactics to throw kindness and compassion at every situation. People who are mean to us, we don't know what they've been through. There's all sorts of things behind things. So the best route is always go to love. What would love do? And do that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what a brilliant insight. I feel like that I have a little bit of experience in that. I think I used to have a little bit of a victim mentality, and I think I used to think, oh, woe is me, this is wrong, that is wrong, and life was much harder that way. And then 2 or 3 years ago, something within me changed, and that coin flipped, and now I see the world in a much different light. And you are right, when you start and behave towards the world in a more loving manner, the world responds in a more loving manner.
It's physics, as human beings with consciousness, we are in the world and the field of the rules and the laws that apply to us are the natural laws of physics. And thoughts, for example, are energy, and the type of thought we have has within it an energy level, and it will attract other thoughts of the same kind of frequency. So, for example, hate, grief, anger, very low frequencies on the frequency scale, compared to, for example, love, appreciation, gratitude, which is very high frequency. And these are, I think of them like little magnets, which will attract exactly that frequency into the field. So if we're pushing out hate, you're going to get hate back. It's just physics. And there are lots of people who talk about this and explain the science of this. For example, Joe Dispenza, people like this, Greg Braden, they put it in the science the arena to talk about how and why this is important. I'm not going to go into that. It's shown elsewhere. But what I do know is that thoughts and words do have their own energy field and their own attractor engine. So I wrote about this in my first book years ago, before I had to apply it into my life and before I saw what I've seen now. And I still stand by it. In my book, Instructions for Happiness and Success, I talk about, I think the opening line is something like, you are a vibrating magnet, pulling things towards you. And that's true. It's exactly what we are. Yeah. So if we want a gorgeous life with abundance, happiness, love, joy, blissful feelings, great opportunities, nice scenarios and stories, we've got to start pulling up our game in terms of our frequencies. How do we do that? The food we eat, the things we look at, kind of things we consume, films, music, whatever, art. And most importantly, our thoughts are the driver for our emotional set point. So it's very important that we discipline ourselves. It's not even discipline. It's lovely to be nice to people. It's lovely to show appreciation, gratitude, love to other people. It's a fantastic way to live. It makes you happy, makes you younger, makes you more attractive, if you like. If you want all the good things, it makes you sparkly and light and attractive and good fun and a good vibe to be around. All of these things. And who doesn't want that? Yeah. So it all makes sense when you really peel back all of these layers.
And I think that identifying where we can improve as individuals will absolutely help to raise the overall consciousness level of the planet, if you like.
Yes. And through my life, I've run many companies. I've been the boss. So I got to dictate the ethos and the values of the companies. And I always ran the companies I ran telling people when I was hiring them, for example, this place is about, we do brilliant work, we get along with each other, and we are always honest, and we have a lot of fun. That's this place. That doesn't work for you, it probably is not the place you want to be working. So I would really filter who was in our team. And I would insist that we were having fun and upbeat and loving what we were doing. A lot of laughter. I mean, it was a celebrity PR agency at one point that I was running, working with MTV and lots of music artists. It was fun. It's easy to have fun. It was also, I was handling thousands of decisions every day. Not everything went right, of course, but the way we responded was positive, having fun, going, okay, what have we got to learn here? That's the other important thing, is that everything that happens to us, especially the difficult things, the things that are really hard, and we go, oh no, my life's awful, because I like to look at anything that comes in that really pokes me or triggers me and go, okay, what's this thing here to show me or to heal in me? What is it? What is the positive flip side of this happening? There is always one. If you have disastrous relationships, if you have problems at work, or whatever it is that keeps repeating, there's a lesson in there for you. And the most important thing is that we have to just spend a moment thinking, what is this here to show me? And actively work on it and work on transforming it into a really good learning. So anything bad that happens in my life, I flip it and see, okay, how is this good? I'll give you an example. Getting brain cancer. So many people said to me, oh, I'm so sorry you went through this. And I say, are you kidding? It was the greatest experience, one of the greatest experiences, along with giving birth to my son, that I've ever been involved with. It's transformational. It's why we're talking now. It was the roadway for me having this near-death experience and experiencing what it's like to go to the other side and then to come back and tell the story of it. This is great. So within the thing of me having cancer, which at one level is, oh my God, this is terrible, can also be, oh my gosh, this is amazing thing that has caused great transformation in my life. I know I was a pretty nice person before I had it, but now I'm much wiser. I can tell you really, hand on heart, really big stuff about life, about being human, about things we should look out for with some sort of wisdom. So I'm very grateful for the fact I went through that, and the courage, and it showed me who's who amongst my friends and family. My family were amazing, and my friends just showed up. Some didn't, but I learned who's who. I learned who would be there in my darkest hours. I really found out the power and the courage and the love I had around me. I grew up feeling I wasn't sure if I was loved. My dad was pretty absent. I love my dad, but he was pretty absent and doing all sorts of things all over the place. And And I always thought, oh, maybe it's me, maybe maybe I'm not fully lovable or something. I went through that. And my illness gave me the lesson I needed. I am so loved. Everybody showed up in the most extraordinary way to look after me, to help me, to provide, to give me food, to give me nourishment and company and all of these things. I got it all. And I'm very grateful. And this will nourish me and keep me going for the rest of my life, the level of kindness and help I had and support I had. And I needed to learn that because when I was little, I didn't really have that. So I was given an almighty lesson where I was potentially leaving my body in order to learn what I needed to learn. So I came in and I've learned many things, and maybe I've got more stuff to learn. For sure, I'm sure I have. I'm sure that's not the final one, but it is interesting for us to really recode the bad stuff as good. We just have to find out what is the good in all the bad. There will be something. And it's difficult to, when we look at extreme situations in the world which are going on, of poverty and terrible conditions and war zones and all of this, how do you explain that? That's very difficult, and people often put this extreme case in and go, well, how do you explain this? I don't have an explanation for that. I just know that on a macro level, on a big level, we're here with things to learn, things to transform us, and it's through everyday life, the burdens, the challenges that we learn the stuff we need to know. That's the only way I can explain it.
Well, I think that's very well explained. So, thank you. I'm curious to know a bit more about, I know you said it was difficult to put into words, but when you were, let's call it the other side, when you were on the other side, what did is it a realm? What did the realm feel like to you? I know that you said you felt a lot of love and it felt peaceful, but was it never ending? Was there other beings there? How did it?
Many things to say. First of all, it is very hard to put into natural language. It's more of a sensation. Because when we talk about it's like if you meditate or if you have a psychic experience, it's really hard to kind of nail that with words about how do you get that information, how do you get that feeling of that intuition coming. The other side was a sense of infinite, a sense of bliss, a sense of being supported. And I have this enduring image of a night sky with lots of stars. When I read deep stuff, there's a lot of, we are made of stardust. And I kind of get that because I saw a lot of stars, and it was a very sensory rich experience. There is no time on the other side. People say, how long were you out for? It's not a relevant question. I came back, and yeah, time had moved on here, but up there, there's no time. Also, there's no separation. A very clear thing I got was that we are all one. There's not you sitting there and me sitting here. No, we're part of a collective arrangement. That's very hard for us to understand because we've learned to code things very physically. This table, my computer's on this table. This table is in my house. It's all very kind of energy form. Matter is very solid in our experience. However, in the quantum world, let's call it, it's very fluid. And I learned that us human beings, we're not individuals, we're part of a collective, which again points to different kind of way of living. We can't blame, those people are taking our jobs. For me, there is no those people. we're all a collective. We're a collective ball of energy. I got the sense of other beings in this dimension, people who would look after me, people who were there to support me, elders who were past but were now there in, let's call it, spirit world. That whole thing was very apparent to me, and that our perception of life as we see it on the ground here on planet Earth, made up of very solid things, it's not really like that. It's how we perceive things, but it's actually not really how things are arranged. And it's almost beyond our perception and our ability to understand. I'm not sure we are meant to understand it fully. I've dug very deeply into philosophy, physics of consciousness, all of these things, and I've got a better understanding, but I still don't understand it. I'm not sure we're meant to, but I think we are now, with this awakening that's happening on the planet, and for sure it's happening, an increased awareness of who we are and so on. I think that our perception is changing collectively, and I think that's a really good thing. And I'm not sure we will ever get the full answers of how this magical thing called life actually works. It blows my mind. You know, I go for a walk in nature, it blows my mind. Looking at the flowers and the plants and the trees and the sea. Wow. I went swimming this morning in the sea, and it was bright turquoise. I was standing on the sand looking out. There were all these boats floating around on the sea, and all I could see was an infinite expanse of water, which I knew somehow connected with another expanse of water out of my sight lines. And I just knew that that's kind of, I'd seen maps before, and I could see that the seas connect. And all I could see was this infinite potential of this sea. And then I thought about me, little me with my feet on the sand, looking down at the sand made of billions of bits of little tiny speckles that made up this sandy beach. And my mind was blown when I actually got down to really see it differently than just getting used to it. Go, oh yeah, that's green tree. Yeah, I've seen loads of those. You know, we get kind of a bit, but actually when you see things like a child with wonder and curiosity, it just changes everything and makes life quite exciting.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. That's something I really like to do as well, is to kind of look at the world like a child, or I used to say, like you've just got out of prison.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I felt being in hospital for me was incarceration. Yeah. And all I could dream of was being home. And I thought to myself, when I can walk down the street, I'm allowed to go into a cafe, I'm allowed to walk down in the street, and I'm not imprisoned, I will be forever happy. Yeah. And that's the case now. And I'm trying not to lose my childlike joy of that thing, that I am free.
And I think that the perspective really there, the lens in which we view the world, it's kind of understanding that we have the power to shape and change that lens if we're not necessarily happy with it how it is now. So, for example, if there's something happens that's negative in your life, if you normally go to a negative thought, then you can kind of whip yourself back into a positive train and kind of, yeah, like I say, flip the coin and see it through a different perspective, which then shifts how you feel about it, making you more equipped to deal with it.
One of the most important things we can do to improve the quality of our life is bring awareness to our thoughts and know that we can change our thoughts. Know that, 1, we are not our thoughts. 2, we can change our thoughts. 3, thoughts power all of the cellular activity that goes on. So let's make it really good. And how do you do that? You feel good. You make a decision. And feeling happy, I wrote a book on happiness. Feeling happy is a choice, I found out. And it's a good choice. If you're going to make any choices, make that one. I'm going to be happy today. And then you wake up tomorrow and you think the same thing. And I'm going to be happy today again. And make that part of your life. And you watch the changes. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I think it's not always an easy choice, but I do think it is always a choice. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking about how you deal with particularly stressful situations and not getting drawn into that negative mindset, you've got an incredible story about what happened to you when you got home.
Yeah.
After you'd been in hospital.
So I was in hospital and I felt incarcerated. I felt I wasn't allowed to leave, and I escaped the hospital 4 or 5 times that no one really knew about. I would slip out of my ward, get changed, cover up all of the tubes that were coming into my, tubes and things in my hands. And I went down, I was in hospital in 2 places, Ibiza and Cambridge in England. And I would nip down to the taxi rank at the bottom of the hospital entrance. I would wait till security were looking the other way, and I'd nip past, pop in the lift, go down, pop out, and then hail a cab and dash into town before anyone saw, and go and have noodles at Wagamama's in Cambridge and have some good hot food. And then I would see everyone walking by, living their lives just ordinary on the high street. I was like, wow, that's what I want. I just want normal. And then I would stay out as long as I dare. Then I would hail a cab, go back to the hospital, wait till no one was looking, nip in the lift, come back up, and then get back, quickly undress and get back in my bed, hoping no one would notice. I did this a lot. And all I dreamt about was leaving hospital. That was my dream. So eventually the day came where I was going to be let out, and they said, okay, yes, you're free to go after this amazing near-death experience and healing of the tumor. So they said, yeah, you can go. And I said, I just want to catch a flight back to Ibiza. And they said, okay, all right, we'll do that. So I booked a flight straight away, and I headed back to my village where I have a house. And I got there, and it was Christmas time, actually, and my friends were having a little Christmas party. So I went to the party and saw my friends. I hadn't seen them for about 7 or 8 months since I'd left my treatment. And my friend was driving me home, and we got to the house. And as we drove in, I lived in a forest. And as we drove up to the driveway, I saw black smoke. And there was this weird evening time thing going on in the forest. An owl went by and hooted. I thought, what's that about? And the closer we got to the house, we could hear crackling. And there was smoke coming out the windows. And when we got there, we saw the whole house was on fire. It was a serious house fire, quite well advanced. And we couldn't even open the door to get in. There was red hot flames leaping out of the house, black billows of smoke, and tinder all around. We're in a forest with wood all around, gas bottles sitting on the side which could blow up at any moment, and this inferno going on in the house. And this is my first night back, and I could never stay in my house again. The whole house burnt down that night. Lost everything except for one thing. There was one thing left in the rubble, the soot. We went back the next morning to view the damage. I just couldn't believe it. The whole place was black inside. All of my furniture had melted. My books had gone. The book I was working on completely destroyed. And there was one thing left that was quite remarkable, because it was the only thing in amongst all this black soot. And I saw it glistening, and I went over and picked it up, and it was a tarot card from my tarot deck. And it was the rebirth card. So if I didn't know what this fire was about, I was very clearly shown it by the rebirth card. This is a rebirth. And it took everything that night. I literally had everything destroyed, clothes, my art, my books, everything. And I was made homeless, actually, that night. And I was still traumatized by being in hospital, being told I was going to die. So I was still full of trauma. And then I've lost my house, this thing I've been dreaming of coming back to the whole time. While I was ill, I was just dreaming of it. So I lost my house and became homeless. And that night I had to check into a hotel to stay. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was with friends. I ran a bath, sat in the bath and thought, okay, what is happening here? Why am I going through this? And again, the amazing generosity came through. People were offering me their houses, their homes, places to stay. But I was bouncing from one to another over the next period of time, staying, people's very kindly people had lent me their places, but it wasn't home. So I was homeless for quite a long time, and it took a while to get back on my feet. And it was traumatizing, but that's what happened. I lost most of my memory with my brain cancer, and then I lost all my stuff. So I was taken right down to point zero and had to really, really start again. So I feel like this is my life part 2. Another reason I want to share how important it is to be present with your life, because you don't know, 1, when it's going to finish, and 2, things don't remain the same. In my case, I lost everything in one night, and things may not remain the same. So you have to stay present, you have to stay vigilant, and you have to stay grateful.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Susie. That was that must have been, I'm struggling to even imagine what it must have felt like, to be honest. But I do think that it's a huge testament to you and who you are as a person and your outlook on life, because you could have very well just fallen into the pits of despair at that point.
Oh yeah.
But you chose not to. You made a decision to drag yourself out of that, and I am in awe of you. Really, I am. I think you're an incredible person with such an amazing story, and I'm really grateful that you're sharing it with us today. So thank you. So in your TEDx talk, you mentioned that you downloaded life lessons during your experience. Can you share a little bit about what some of those were? I know that you've touched on those a little bit already, but is there any kind of broad message and how they've now impacted your everyday living?
Yeah, I've condensed it down to 7 big lessons for life. And I'm currently writing a book about this at the moment. And there are many elements and many things that I've learned on this spectacularly colourful journey. And there's also a film going to be made about this story, which I'm really happy about. And I think, I'll touch on one of the most big topics, which is we have to really conduct our inner world very carefully. We are in control of our inner world, and we use our brain and our thoughts and our language and words to process emotions and thoughts and ideas and so on. Our job is to keep that really carefully and meticulously managed. I think one of the big things I really realized is that we are the architects of our life. We are the designers of our lives. And that we have to really spend time reflecting and going inside ourselves, which is inside where all the truths and all of the big important stuff is. So it's important we have a practice where we connect with ourselves on a spiritual level. Mine is a number of things. Mine is Reiki and meditation, specifically, both of which I'd learned 15 years before all this happened. And I use those as tools to really get clear about what's going on inside, shutting my eyes regularly every day and just spending time with myself. But I think it's very important that we get to know who we are and get to know our internal landscape and get good at being able to manage that really well, and know that our efforts in terms of our thinking and our thoughts and behavior really dictates the outcomes that we see in our lives and other people will see in their lives. So I think one of the things that we can be mindful of is that this is not a random universe. I believe it's much more structured than that, and it comes out of the way that we manage our lives internally. So it's very important to spend time self-reflecting, to spend time connecting with whatever you believe is your source. Doesn't matter, we call it different names, doesn't matter. But I think everyone would agree that there is something driving the bus here, some big force. I don't care what people call it. And I don't need to be right. I think we'd all agree that this isn't sort of random as such. It's something that's there's a great design, there's a big design here. So for me, it's being able to interrogate that and think about that and feel about that and really enjoy the creative part of being a human being. And that creativity is about leading with sparks of inspiration, thinking about things you really would love to do and somehow making those things possible, living a life of creative manifestation and creative excitement. You know, I wrote a book on creativity, the art of creativity, while I was in hospital, by the way. I had brain cancer and I was writing this book on creativity, and my channels just opened. I was just writing. I was like, okay, give me some good stuff. And I was writing like this. I mean, it was phenomenal. I remember phoning up from my hospital bed, my publisher at Hachette, and saying, I'm in hospital. It's, yeah, I mean, apparently the doctor's saying it's not looking good, but I am writing my book. And bless her, I remember my editor, publisher, saying, and I knew she thought we're never going to see this book. And I knew that they would see this book because I was actually there with my keyboard in my hospital bed, bashing away. And this creativity, the tapping into creativity is one of the greatest things we can do. And we're meant to. We're here as humans to be creative and leave our mark and do great things. So that's how I would close this, to say, get connected with your creativity. And in my book, I talk about how you do that, you know, different ways of doing that. And the more we do it, the healthier we become, the more wonderful life becomes. And we break down a lot of fears and blocks that we may have had through the years. Creativity for me is a brilliant tool to bring in. So I'd encourage people to get the paintbrush out, get the writing done, make that thing you've been meaning to make, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be great. It's your expression as a human being. That's what counts.
Absolutely, thank you so much. And I've read your book. Actually, I listened on Audible, and it's amazing. So if you're watching this and you haven't downloaded the book, please go and do that. I promise you will not be disappointed. So I just want to wrap up by saying thank you so much, and I cannot wait to hear more of what you've got to say at our upcoming event. Thank you so much for everything, and I can't wait to see you again soon.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and I hope the information we've exchanged is useful to people.
Thanks so much, so I'm sure it will be.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susie. See you later.
Yeah.
Bye.